Yeah, so I know when we chose Murfreesboro, there was like one bit of music history there that we did know. And it was kind of the leading force. We were like, well, if there's nothing else, we can at least focus on this. And that was all of SpongeBath Records. Right. I was pretty young. I mean...
So this is back, what, mid-90s?
Well, and that's the thing, too. SpongeBath Records, all of this has happened in the time since we've moved to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Like it headed into its peak, right in the first couple of years after.
For those not familiar, SpongeBath Records was this, all of a sudden, it just popped out as nowhere, and it was known nationwide, and a
lot of guys out of MTSU,
so
a lot of college kids that were in bands.
Mm-hmm. You had the band Self. They had the band Fluid Ounces, the Cadies, the Features, and this Count Bass D. Those are some of the main guys.
Good stuff.
And so when we moved to Dixon, how did we hear? Like for me, I remember going and seeing Self. I remember going seeing Self and the Cadies, and I don't remember, it was at the riverfront or something.
Yeah.
And so we heard about this music, and
I'm trying to remember when my introduction to it might very well have been the group of friends I kind of joined at Dixon High.
Yeah.
Because it was coming out of Murfreesboro, and they even kind of, it became, even though it was in Murfreesboro, it kind of became the Nashville sound as far as
and it wasn't
like
indie music and
indie and rock oriented and rock pop, that kind of this was before like Jack White came and before the Black Keys, before the rock influences, the Kings of Leon.
I'm sure Kings of Leon and them were probably around,
but they weren't in Nashville.
They were much.
No, they might have been. They're from.
They might have been around, but they weren't.
But SpongeBath became
big like that.
Brought this attention to where if you thought of Nashville, the rock element, the rock pop. Indie element of Nashville was SpongeBath.
Right, something other than country for Nashville to be known by. SpongeBath Records, it came on strong.
And they were
a lot of good musicians.
They were on the cover of Billboard magazine. This Self was, and they influenced. A bunch of them. These bands ended up getting signed with major nationwide labels.
Mm-hmm. The Features went on to do a lot of big things. So itself,
and we're going to talk a little more about the Features. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing of them was in mid-90s. They were well known nationwide, worldwide.
Huge for me. Yeah, I was pretty young when
they were great too. The music was cool.
It's very good. It was kind of original.
It was different, and it had a style, even though. Like the Cadies were more of a harder rock thing. Mm-hmm. Self became very well. They were probably the most successful.
I'd say so.
Nationwide, and they went on to do a song on Shrek, the movie Shrek.
The first Shrek movie. Yeah, there's this one of their songs. Credits.
That probably helped their name.
That was, obviously they'd already been signed to a big label for that, and they relocated to California.
Yeah, they went to California and stuff like that. But originally, just all came out of Murfreesboro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, there's a guy, I wanted to bring this up, we didn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. There's a guy that was part of the original crew of SpongeBath who is named Michael Eads.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Eads was part of the staff of the SpongeBath movement. Now, our connection to him is...
Well, he went on to start and owns YK Records, which is also
currently now.
I would kind of say that's the closest thing to what SpongeBath was.
It's all indie music. It's got he signs up really cool bands.
A lot of good stuff.
And in fact, we did a meeting underground completely about YK Records.
A big show they did.
We'll show you right here what episode that was. And so we did this whole thing, and we went to one of their nights where they premiered their bands, and we did video. We shot video, and we did put together a meeting underground with all their bands. It was all about their record label. And Michael Eads sent us thing saying thank you so much.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Really appreciated it.
And we should say that
and then,
our brother's band...
Our brother...
Go ahead, you tell
No, go ahead.
The Mute Group is...
Yeah, the band Mute Group,
label,
which we've talked about a lot. That's their brother, my son, Ryan LaFave. He is the bass player for the band, the Mute Group. Mm-hmm. And we've nobody that's watched these meeting undergrounds doesn't know who they are.
Yeah,
Because we've talked about them and featured them a lot.
but this
And
was
this
full circle.
And that was like the East Nashville bands that we were all a part of back, before the quarantine and all this stuff hit and ruined everything. But we were part of that group and we were supporting one another. This new group is on YK Records.
Yeah.
Which is a really cool,
which is an offshoot,
familial tie into the subject
back
at
to
hand
SPONGEBATH.
today.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's another family connection that we have with other than just going and seeing Self and knowing who they were, and knowing some of these bands. Flute Ounces, really good band. This Count Basie, I don't know a lot about him, but he was like
part
a rapper,
of
kind of fun,
which he continues to. He
he's still
recorded
doing
so much music, but he would, when you get those cool little explosions of a music scene in town, and they all work with each other. So Count Basie would pop up on like Self stuff, and they would do stuff.
That's not Count Basie. That's Count Bass D.
Yes,
because everybody knows who Count Basie is. But so anyway, but one of the connections that we personally as a family have had is with the band The Features, who were a premier band of SpongeBath. Yeah. We have. Somebody want to explain our connection with them?
Well, I'd been listening to them, at some point, shortly after we'd moved here from Michigan, I'd been listening to a lot of these bands and would go with friends into Nashville and see their live shows and in a number of different venues. I remember seeing The Features early on where Matt is up on the stage in his rabbit suit playing his trombone, and all that, and then seeing Self, and getting to meet the band, and I still have a pair of drumsticks from the drummer from Self, which is he's one of my favorite drummers. I just always liked his style, and his name's Jason. So,
but one of the go ahead.
But so having gone to a number of these shows, and then there was a particular one that we went. It was a Third and Lindsley show. It was a Mother's Day show, and we took Mom. And
now, to explain, we want to explain a little bit. My wife, Sally, is a really, really good photographer. And she's photographed a lot of music bands. Citizen Cope, she's done a significant amount of work on his work early on. Yeah. And then she did lots of other bands and stuff like that. But The Features was one of the bands she connected up with personally, and did a lot of their early photo stuff that was going on when they were first breaking.
And that was
my wife and their mother.
Yeah,
Two Wings Photography, by the way.
Yeah,
it's right here.
But I remember the specific event. We went to that Mother's Day show of The Features, and they were just on it that night. And they got done, and Mom was so in love with their music, she went straight over to the manager and was like, "You guys are awesome. Can I shoot you? Can I do some photos with you?" And that started that interaction, that relationship.
It went on for a few years.
Mom was,
promo
one of their official photographers, and so
just had to be surreal for you.
It was very surreal. I'd already been listening to them for years, and then it's like Mom's going to do pictures of The Features.
The Features.
And then
by the way, The Features are fantastic.
They are, and they always have been.
And they're copied now.
Still influential.
They're influential. For listening to them, I heard a little bit coming back of like Talking Heads sort of influence, but they took that and they didn't copy that. They took it into a whole thing that now they're the ones everybody's copying that are doing it currently in today's music market.
And they still play, Self and Features on Lightning 100 once in a while. Like, it's definitely still in the air a bit, their influence and stuff.
I remember Mom did this shoot with Features, and it was at this, I forget where it was, somewhere in Nashville.
Her friend's studio, I think.
Yeah, it was a friend of her studio, and I went there just to be a grunt guy, a gopher to help out.
And so, I did not miss the opportunity to go to that. I was there.
So you were there too.
Yeah.
And so we got to watch them change wardrobe and all that stuff. I kind of got to know Matt a little bit that day. I never really was close. Mom was pretty close to those guys, but I knew them. They knew me by face and name and all that. And but it was real interesting. So we got to go to that first thing,
that studio shoot, which
that
for me
ended up all that stuff. They ended up using all that material.
Yeah.
And Mom, Sally, my wife, basically gave them all of that stuff. at no charge and allowed them to use it for promotion. And it was pretty cool.
That experience for me at the studio, like we already discussed, I was already a huge fan and had been for a few years. So to actually, I don't know how many people get to do this, to like sit down with a band that you love and just talk music.
So cool.
I got to have like discussions with them about music that I liked, that they liked, that hearing influences like you mentioned Talking Heads, but I remember Matt specifically saying, he was a big David Bowie fan, and that
David Bowie would be another one.
For sure.
Yeah, it's not like he was a direct, but I noted it was that new wave kind of rock thing that the Talking Heads are doing.
Quirkiness.
Their band. This was after that, so these guys. I could tell he was influenced with, but Matt is incredible. These guys put out some great music, and they ended up getting signed with a big label, and then stuff happened, and they ended up. But they're still around, still influential. I don't know if they're playing right now.
I think they might, as far as I know, they might have stopped a couple of years ago. But
well,
they went for a while.
There's one other little 6 degrees of separation thing that happened in this. We talked about YK Records. Well, one of the bands on YK Records is called The Robe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And when we shot their showcases, we had film of this band, The Robe, and The Robe is a guy named Rollum, and he's in this band, The Robe, that's on YK Records, and he was the drummer from the Features.
Yeah.
Another little circle event.
A lot of those guys are still in the scene and in the community.
So it's pretty cool.
And they're great too. His new band's The Robe.
So we're probably going to have to bring this into a close, but that's the 3 different areas that Murfreesboro represents musically, historically, and personally. And I think that the trip we took was very interesting. It was it was not like the other trips. We didn't have certain things to go see, but we dug it all up, and that kind of set the nature of it.
We did have to, while there weren't like remnants of things to do with SpongeBath on the walls or at the location, we did make a point of going and seeing a show at the end.
Yeah,
which went right across from
not the end.
I'm sorry, the Burrow. The Burrow.
Yeah, the Burrow was the hot club. We'll show a little footage of it.
It's right across from the campus.
But the Burrow was the place everybody played. That was where all the concerts were.
Of those guys.
And all these bands came through. That was where they broke. They cut their teeth there.
Yeah, for sure. It's still there.
It's still there. We went and had dinner there.
Yeah,
and saw a band. They were pretty good.
Yeah. That was probably one of, besides like Cornerstones of growing up. I was like 13 years old and I saw the Features at the Burrow. That was like I felt like I was growing up. Like I got to go. Cool. So I even have memories of that place. So
that's the music of Murfreesboro. And that's what this episode's about.